Time again for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. Al, a little rain might have slowed things down for a day or so this past week for some producers, but it didn't seem to be a soaker statewide. How are things looking in terms of weather when we turn to the week ahead?
Well, Bryce, we did have a little light precipitation activity primarily in central Nebraska, and it wasn't that widespread, fairly narrow channel. Best reports were in the quarter-inch to half-inch range, but a lot of the totals were in that tenth to a quarter-inch range. So not much in the way of significant delays were expected with that precipitation event. With these dry conditions the last couple of days, pretty much it was a non-event in terms of slowing down harvest activity over a widespread area of Nebraska. Of course, that's not a surprise. We've been dealing with persistent dryness issues the entire summer, and it looks like that's going to continue at least into the foreseeable future. And unfortunately, from CPC standpoint, we look at the new release of the updated October forecast, so it goes from a preliminary to a final issue the last day of September, looking for a broad area from the south central plains all the way up through the northern plains, taking it westward through the northern Rockies and then down through the Great Basin. This is the highest risk for above normal temperatures, but we still have moderate to minor risk of above normal temperatures to our south and to our east, primarily almost all the way into the eastern Corn Belt. We've seen above normal temperature forecast. In terms of precipitation, the core area with the highest probability centered right through the nation's midsection. Eastern Nebraska has the highest probability, central Nebraska just a weak probability of below normal moisture, and then equal chances we get out into the Panhandle and western Nebraska with above normal moisture being projected for the central Rockies. And this was based on the idea that an upper air low would develop during the mid-month period over the northern Rockies and cut off, and that's why we see this forecast here. That has changed somewhat in the most recent models. Now, as we look at what's going on today, the cold air that was responsible, or pulled in with the response to this upper air trough, is starting to shift to our east. We're going to still remain under cool conditions today and a little bit of cloud cover, but nothing in the way of precipitation. Looking at temperatures that primarily will hold into the 60s statewide, maybe some upper 50s across the extreme northeastern Nebraska. As we go into tomorrow, that trough kind of lifts a little bit off toward the northeast. That allows slightly warmer temperatures in to the region. So we'll be looking at upper 60s across the northeast and mostly into the low to mid 70s across the remainder of the state under dry conditions. As we go into the day on Monday, we see a little bit of a wave moving on the southern periphery of this trough. Right now, this system is not expected to have much of an impact on Nebraska outside of maybe a possible wind shift. We're looking at dry conditions, and consistently we're going to stay into 70s statewide, maybe make it to the low 80s across the southwest. As we get into Tuesday, we start to see the formation of a trough over south central Canada. This is going to bring some pretty significant cold air into the northern plains and potentially the northern half of Nebraska as we work into the later part of the week. But in terms of moisture, if we see any moisture, it's most likely going to be an upslope flow situation in the northwestern part of the state, but really tenth of an inch would be really pushing it. As we get into the day on Wednesday, this cold air starts to really funnel through the state and will progress through the state during the afternoon hours and moving into these portions of the central plain or central Midwest as we get into late evening hours. This looks like hard freeze conditions that are likely to be up in north central and northeast Nebraska, with the potential for frost to hard freeze conditions all the way down to the I-80 corridor. On Thursday, this low pressure system really intensifies. We're going to deal with a lot of wind across northeast and northeastern Nebraska. Temperatures are going to remain cool. 50s and 60s are most likely for temperatures under cloudy conditions, maybe some light precipitation, but at this point, the models are indicating less than a tenth of an inch. As we get into the day on Friday, we start to see this trough starting to break apart somewhat. We'll start to see that ridge building in and much warmer conditions as we work in through late next week and the following week. If we look farther out in the future, 8 to 14 day forecast next Thursday, the following Tuesday, we can see those new normal conditions as the cold air moves out and the warm air moves into our region. And in terms of precipitation, below normal is the name of the game.